Welcome back to the channel, Ninja Turtle, and today we're going to talk about these custom-made Ada Wong figures made by myself. And you see 3. I attempted 4, but I made 3, so there is one failure in here. I am human after all. There is one figure that's not here that we will talk about later. I will talk about it in more detail later on, but we will talk about these 3 Ada Wong costumes that well, 2 that I made, and 1 is a 3D print. So we'll talk about how I made these figures and how they came to be, and some of the decisions that I made and why I made them. And then, like I said, later on we'll go ahead and talk about that one last one that didn't work out for me. So stay tuned for that. We'll go ahead and start things off by talking more in detail about each one, starting off with the 3D printed one. All right, so this is a 3D printed figure. So I did not want to try to make this as a action figure or just try to make it as my own custom figure, specifically because of the dress and all of the details on it. I thought all of that details is just stuff that I couldn't do on my own, and I really wanted something, well, one, official, but that's why we're here, making our own toys, because it's hard to find something like this official. I don't even think there is one officially made. If there is, I don't have it. So 3D printed it is, and I really wanted something large because I really like this costume for Ada. I really like RE2 Remake as a game, and so on. So went ahead and got a 3D print of this particular costume for Ada. That being said, I ordered it from Etsy. Now, I would like to recommend users here and there if I approve of them, or if they're just good to order from. In this case, I won't be recommending the seller for this particular one that I bought it from, for multiple reasons. One, because I think there actually are several things that are wrong with the prints, specifically the print quality. The sculpt is something we'll talk about. The sculpt quality we'll talk about shortly, but the print quality, there's actually a crack right in here. I can hardly see it because it's been painted over so much, so it's not that big of a deal. But if I were to press down on her stomach right here, you would be able to see a crack. It would open up. So it's been painted over and top coated and stuff, so it's hard to see any of those details, but it was there. There's actually 2 cracks in her stomach that were there. Another issue, there are some holes, like just from the print quality of it, there's like little bumps and holes and stuff that you can't sand out unless you like start sanding away big chunks of resin with like a Dremel or something. But they mostly were on her feet, so caveat is that you're not really going to see any of those things. But her hair did have like lots of bumps in it too. That's going to be hard to see on the camera, but there are like lots of little small bumps in here, and that stuff is impossible to sand out, or really difficult without sanding out the details of the hair itself. And I sanded everything. You should be sanding your printed statues and stuff. There was like some connected pieces in there that I had to cut out and sand out and stuff like that. There was one here on the leg as well. So all in all, it was just an okay print quality that needed to be cleaned up some, but not all of it could have been cleaned up because of just how not great the quality of the print was. So I'm not going to recommend the seller for that. Also, that seller, I'm pretty sure, long story short, they were going through some personal things and they aren't selling anymore. So even if they were a good seller, I can't actually recommend them anyway, so it doesn't matter. But as far as the print, the sculpt quality, that's a little back and forth. Now we'll talk about my painting quality because I painted this. That's a whole nother subject, but as far as the sculpt quality, whoever made this, I don't really know who the actual sculptor is. There are things I like about this a lot, but there's some decisions that I think that could have made this better. In general, like comparing to my Jill Valentine that I did last month or 2 months ago, the cuts on the Jill Valentine were perfect where they are hidden, so you don't have to really fill in any of the connecting parts with sculpt or anything like that to hide them where the different pieces are glued together. That's not the case with this Ada, because although they did do a decent job of hiding that on the legs, the cuts are about here and here. So they were, you can kind of see that on the camera, there were a little bit of lines, especially since I had to sand it to glue it together. If it was a little higher, then it could have been on the line where the skirt is, and then you wouldn't see that line. So I would have wished it was higher up on the leg than where it actually was. But you can see a little bit where I put some sculpt in there to try to fill that in, and did a decent job of that. But the arms, for some reason, you put the cut on the arm right here, and for some reason also right here, as opposed to up here where it would have been better on the strap. If you put that arm cut there and then your arm cut here, then you wouldn't see that seam whatsoever, because it would go straight into the strap for her holster. So I don't know why they put it down here on her bicep. So that just really messes up the look of this, because although it's not super bad, again, I filled it in as best as I could with sculpt to try to clean it up. It's still there, still visible, and it just makes more sense to do it that way. Overall, now we're talking about the paint quality, which would be all 100% me. I didn't do a great job. So all of these figures I am really not super happy with, to be honest with you, but we'll talk about that later on as well. I really messed up her eyes. They're just not perfect. That's always a Achilles heel of mine, is I can't get the eyes to be consistently good for anything I do. And then there's also a little bit of like a paint splotch inside here. Yeah, you can see a little bit better there. Messed that up, so there's like a bubble of paint there, and then it just looks a little weird. I tried to experiment with the leggings, so I ended up using the same color for all of the leggings on Ada. But yeah, that I was experimenting, and long story short there, my experiments didn't work and I had to settle for this. So this color is the flesh tone color that I made. It's a custom mix of flesh tone, and then I added black to try to darken it, and that was one of the ideas, and that didn't work. I ended up making it gray. So I was like, what the hell? Hot flesh tone and black makes gray? Okay. And then I added brown to that, so it's a little bit of brown in here plus flesh tone and black. It still looks mostly gray, but I guess in the lighting it's starting to see a little bit of the brownness in there as well. So it's an acceptable color. It's not the right color, but you know, I got to do what I got to do. I had to move on. I couldn't. I spent like a week painting these, and yeah, it took a long time to figure things out. But overall, she turned out okay. It could have been better, could have been worse, but I am going to have to live with it. I wouldn't say I'm satisfied, but I have to live with this. All right, moving on to the next one. So this is meant to be Resident Evil 4 Ada Wong Mercenaries Ada Wong. This is the Mercenaries outfit. So if you played Ada in Mercenaries, this is what she's wearing in that game mode, and I believe I wouldn't say believe, I know it is unlockable and playable in the main campaign as well, because the last time I played RE4, which was a couple months ago, I had her wearing this outfit. So yeah, I ended up playing that, and I took a bunch of screenshots, and I was like, man, this is a really great outfit. So that's why I made it into a figure. So this and the next one are non-articulated. So obviously the 3D printed one is non-articulated as well. That was not the original intention. I actually intended on making all of my Adas except for the 3D printed one. I wanted them to all be articulated figures. So some things had to be changed because of some issues that occurred that occurred when basically all of this was really an experiment to begin with, and we'll get into that right now. Actually, might as well just do it. So I was trying to make flexible sculpt. What I mean is, because she has a skirt here and she has the dress in RE4 and the other one as well. So that needs to be flexible, and I don't have the skill or money to do soft goods. And I looked for soft goods as well, like for the RE4 dress, but there wasn't any at this scale. I think there's like a 1/6 scale Ada that has a soft goods on eBay, but I couldn't find anything else for a 1/12 scale Ada or a RE4 1/12 scale on Etsy either. So I just was like missed out on anybody making that and selling it, at least if they did at all ever. So I was looking for a way to do flexible sculpt, and long story short, I achieved flexible sculpt. I actually have sculpt that I made that is flexible and paintable, right? This is something that can be worked with. This was originally the RE4 dress though, and you can see it's not on my Ada or this one either because things didn't work out. It was the first time I ever tried doing it. So what it is, if you have epoxy sculpt right here, this stuff, epoxy sculpt, specifically epoxy sculpt B, right? Only this, it comes in twos. Like when you buy it, it comes as a package. You get epoxy sculpt A and you get epoxy sculpt B. What you need is epoxy sculpt B, and you need green stuff. The others type of sculpt is called green stuff, but you need just the yellow side of it. So you take the yellow side of green stuff and mix it with epoxy sculpt B evenly, same amount. So it just 50-50, and you get this. It turns this color. It's like a greenish yellow, and it is very sticky when you first create it, but it does harden, but it's still very soft and very flexible. You can see, like, again, this was wrapped around her body. I can fold it backwards the other way and it returns back to shape. Really, it works really well. This is really good stuff, but you need a lot of it. 1 and 2, that gets a little pricey. 3, I tried to do this for all of the different Adas, and it didn't work out because it was the first time I had worked with it, so I didn't make enough space when I sculpted on the body. So for instance, with this Ada, the skirt on it, the bottom part of the dress, I made it too tight to her body, so trying to put her legs on was impossible because there wasn't enough room in her hips for the legs to pop on while the skirt was on. So I had to scrap that idea, and instead of going back and trying to make more of this, which would have cost me more money and took more time, I decided to just go ahead and make it like this. And that was the case for the Resident Evil 4 Ada as well, which I will get into shortly. But in long story short, again, this does work. So if you are trying to make articulated figures with flexible sculpting material, as I described, this does work. It does look a little bumpy and nasty and weird and stuff like that. You can sand this. This is sandable. You can sand it smooth, so even though it's a little weird right now, you can sand it smooth, and then you should sand it anyway because you got to paint it. But you can paint it, and you can make it whatever color that you need it to be. But again, I was broke and running out of, and didn't want to spend more time or money and resources on trying again for all of these Adas, so I decided to make her non-articulated. That being said, I have her on a base, a custom-made base, just like I did before. I meant to put a Resident Evil like a umbrella corp symbol on this, but I kind of forgot, so I just had to settle for just plain black. This is her outfit basically. Like I said, same color leggings as on the 3D print. I actually forgot I need to put some metal on her back right there. I have like some jump rings that are loose metal that I wanted to string through. I made a little hole there and I wanted to have that dangle down. I forgot to do that, but I can do that anytime. Other than that, as much of the detail is there as possible. These legs are just the regular Kate Bishop style legs, and then these thighs are your MJ No Way Home thighs with some modifications, but in general they're not articulating anyway. The skirt is sculpted on with epoxy sculpt, just the actual epoxy sculpt, so it's hard sculpted on, just a full regular epoxy sculpt. Same thing with all of these details with the belt. All of that is hard sculpted on. Her torso, even the pouch back here, is all hard sculpted on. This torso, the lower torso, is a female beetle torso, so it's actually more like a bodysuit than it is just like a Kate Bishop. It does have like this spine little detail on the back, and you see I cut into the sculpt for the dress. I put this little line there, I put lines here on the side, I put lines here on the front of the thighs as there should be, and then her chest also has these lines, which her upper torso, again, these are all separate pieces put together. This is just a standard Lady Deadpool, Shikla, one of those, not really sure, but I added sculpt on top of that so I can get this detail to be on there. This harness right here, her holster, is another one, just like a standard Lady Deadpool sort of thing, and then I added sculpt here to be on that chest part, just for completion. All of the details for this costume are not present, so I didn't get everything down perfectly, so there are some things that I skipped over, or some things that I just missed, as is. The gloves on her hands are, well, actually the sculpt across her chest, right, and the sculpt around her wrist is in fact the same sculpt that I was talking about. It is this stuff. It was just working with it and getting rid of it, and I wanted something to just put down, and I had it ready, so I just went ahead and put it down. So it can be sculpted on the body. It's on there hard. It's not like it's not going to move or anything, obviously, because it's sculpted down and painted down, but it is the same flexible sculpt, not that it matters, right? Her hands, this one is a gloved hand. This is from Spider-Woman, the one where Spider-Woman has the glasses and stuff. So this is just a nice gloved hand, C grip, and then this one is a gun trigger hand, gloved as well, and that's from the Deadly Origin Black Widow. I don't know where this gun comes from though. So I've had this gun for a long time. I have no idea what character came with this gun. It was like a light gray or white color, and I just repainted it with gunmetal gray and black. Love the way it looks. It's a great looking color, but I have no idea. So it's basically a makeshift TMP is what I was going for. So I don't really care if it's not a pistol or anything like that, or accurate to the game. It's just meant to be a makeshift TMP. That's it for that detail. And now it's just the head, and that's a 3D printed head. And this is where most of my disappointment is. It's really easy to screw up painting a face, and I did that 3 times in a row. 4 times really. Her eyes just don't look great, and other than that, the 3D print is fine. So this head is actually meant to be, and this is my mistake, I purchased it accidentally, it's meant to be her Resident Evil 2 remake head. So this should be on the same dress as the previous 3D printed one. That's what this is meant to be, but I wasn't paying attention when I bought that, so I had to use it for something. So it's still a good looking hair sculpt, and face is okay, and all that, but it is not supposed to be on this body. She should have longer hair for Resident Evil 4. but that's my mistake for buying the wrong head sculpt. So it was either that or use it for Resident Evil 6 or use it for the original Resident Evil 2. But I decided, no, I really like this costume, so I would rather just plop it on this body. Oh well, I'll deal with it. But yeah, overall, it turned out okay, other than the eyes. If the eyes were better, I'd probably be a little bit happier with how it turned out. All right, so now we are on Resident Evil 4 proper, the dress, the bitch in the red dress, as some would say. And yeah, again, mixed bag with this. I like it, but also I don't. You know, and it's just going to come down to the face. But there's some other details as well. So to start off, again, custom made base. This is meant to be how she's posed on the bottle cap. So if you know anything about Resident Evil 4, you know about the bottle caps. This is that pose that Ada has when she's on the bottle cap, and that's what you see here. This is the bottle cap. I was tempted to make some more grooves in here to make it look like a bottle cap, but I actually made this base a little too thin. It's usually a little thicker than this, and I should have made it thicker, but since it's so thin, and I just went ahead and just kept it as is. By the way, I did, like, the bottom of this is not painted, so this is actually blue pigmented resin, and then I dremeled it down so it can smooth it out and all of that, and I had to paint the top part of it, but the bottom part is actually just straight up blue resin, just like the last one. That was actually black resin, and then again sanded the top part and painted that, but the bottom of it is just black resin on that last one, and this is blue resin on this one. Just your standard Hasbro heels and so on. As you can see, the dress, it's all the way on. I started the dress at her torso right here, and all of this, there's no sculpt at all right here. I smoothed it out as much as possible so you can still see where it starts, but it's not super bad looking or anything like that. I wish I could have sanded it down a little bit more, especially here in the hip area, but her arm is in the way because of I had to put her arm in already. But yeah, like I said, with this, you can see this was what was wrapped around her at one point. But one of the things, I ran out of material when I was doing this, so I had to super stretch it thin. You can see how you can see through it right there, super thin. I didn't have enough material to make it thick enough, so it ended up being very thin in these areas. It wouldn't have mattered too much if it stuck on her body and it was properly spaced out, but because it was my first time, I made it too tight, so when it dried on her body, I tried putting her legs on and I couldn't get the legs in there because of how tight it was to her hips. So once I put her legs on, it popped right off, and it was just too late to try to do anything with it because it's already cured. So that's why we have epoxy sculpt dress that is hard sculpted on there, and she is a non-articulated figure. That's the story. But she's painted mostly, not completely 100%, but mostly on the inside. Did my best to get those details in there. Funny enough, the actual dress in the game has the butterfly pattern on the inside and the outside of the dress. You know darn well I'm not painting all of that on the inside of the dress because that's impossible. So it's just on the outside. Her holster here, I sculpted that myself. It's not the most detailed, but it gets the job done. As far as that butterfly pattern, I tried to get details in there, but it's really hard, especially when you don't have like a really small brush. Come on, get in there, focus. There we go. We don't have a really small brush. I had a small enough brush, but you know, it wasn't perfect, right? I didn't go for every single perfect detail. So there are some things like on the butterfly patterns, I believe this white color, there's some dots on the outside of each like tip of the butterfly, and then there's some more white on the inside. I decided to skip all of that. I tried to go have it look like that picture of her that model of her on the bottle cap and use that as my reference for how the butterflies are positioned and the flowers and the leaves and whatever. It just didn't come out perfect, but you know, it does the trick. My favorite thing is the red color of the dress with this darker red color for the vines, and it actually shows up on camera, so I'm very happy about that. The vines look the cleanest. That's probably the cleanest thing I did on the detail for this, so I'm happy with that part of it. Everything else is just kind of winging it, sort of making it look as close as possible to how it's supposed to, the best I could. That said, everything else is pretty much standard fare. Same body that I was using on the last one. Kate Bishop leg, MJ thigh, just a regular Kate Bishop torso on this one, and then a regular, like I said, Lady Deadpool, Sheilah, whatever, top on this. Added the sculpt for the top of the dress, so all of this is just sculpted on with all of this detail. Same thing here. You can look down and see that black there. All of this right here for the I don't know what you want to call this, but scarf details, whatever, that is the flexible sculpt as well. That is this stuff right here. So this does move. This is not hard sculpted. It can be bent and stuff like that. So that's cool. Wish this had a little bit more detail for this jewelry piece or whatever, the bangle, the clasp, or whatever you call it. But I did my best there. Her hair actually broke back here, so some of the strands of hair broke off while I was trying to put this head on, because of how thick this piece is back here. So it is missing a little of that detail there. And then yeah, her face, which is also messed up. So there's actually, I have gripes with her face, because her head, I should say, the actual 3D printed head, I think it's a little too small. And it could be because I'm using this body. Maybe I should be using a different upper torso. I do think I gave her a large chest in general. I could have given her a smaller chest and changed her composition a little bit and it might have been more accurate, to be honest with you, but I wanted her to have this chest anyway, because of how busty this one is. Since this one is all busty, I wanted all of them to be busty, so that's why I chose this chest. I could have chose a smaller chest, but that said, it makes her head look really small. Her head is really small, and just not really small, just like if it was a smidge bigger, I think it would fit and look more appropriate, but it is small looking. And what definitely is small is her eye sockets. Her eyes are very small, and it was incredibly difficult to paint her eyes. You can look at the actual 3D sculpt, like without paint, if you look it up on Etsy, where I got this from. Thank you, Daisho 3D Creations, again, for the prints on all of these 3D printed heads. So there's that. Link for him is in Etsy. So he printed them. He's not responsible for the sculpt. And I'm talking about the eyes are a little small. I wish they were bigger. They've made it super hard to paint those eyes, and that's why it looks a little off and janky. But that is Resident Evil 4 Ada. If Pop-Up Parade would like to make a Resident Evil 4 Ada for me so I can trash this thing and I'll replace it with that, I would love that. But until someone steps up and makes an affordable Ada Wong, I'll have to live with this. Alright, so last but not least is Resident Evil 4 Remake Ada. This was the failure. So this one, I decided to try to make this one articulated, despite the fact that the other two were not articulated. So I've got, come on, let me zoom in, maybe it'll help. There we go. I bought this 3D printed head. Again, Daisho 3D Creations did this print for me, and same issues as before. The eye didn't paint the eyes very well, but that's not even that big of a deal. The actual quality of the head is fine. It's not the best, it's not the worst. But I did everything on this figure, but my issue was here with the dress. So again, using that flexible sculpt, I had sculpted it on down onto her torso, and I thought there might have been enough room to actually get her legs in there. And you can see it's on, but the skirt itself doesn't go all the way down. It's supposed to go further down than this, so it's not on her enough. You can see inside like pretty easily, where her underneath her skirt is. So it doesn't allow for articulation. If I were to push this down more, it would rip in half, because it's soft enough. It is going to move and articulate, but if I pull it down to be where it needs to be without all of this gap, you can see there, if I pull it down, it's just going to rip in half, because it's already, again, very thin, because I was running out of material, so I don't have any more left. And I don't feel like buying more, not right now at least. So I just basically just considered it a failure and was going to move on. Funny enough, though, when I was making this, I saw that there is a non-licensed third-party Resident Evil 4 Ada Wong soft goods figure in production that's coming out later this year. It costs like $75. I've never bought from those guys. I don't remember the name of who made them, but they are a third party, so it's not officially licensed. But it looks pretty solid, and it would be like, I was considering like maybe I should scrap this and just buy that instead. But the whole goal was to, one, save money, and two, do it myself because I'm an artsy guy, and three, because I had already bought the 3D printed head. It was literally as I was about to paint this, I found that online. So you can see all the details. I have the hands, the arms, and stuff like here. Everything was ready to go. I was really putting together. Everything is painted. It's just I couldn't get this skirt on, and I rather just move on. And that I decided let's just call it a failure. Let me move on, and oh well, maybe I'll end up ordering that third-party Ada Wong after all. Maybe over the summer there'll be some news at Comic-Con or something like that of a new figure line coming out for Resident Evil, or Summer Games Fest is only a couple months away from now. Maybe there's a Resident Evil 9 gets dropped there. Who knows what happens? But that was that. I'm just going to call that a failure. That being said, yeah, I am already feeling very discouraged because of that. Like, all of these figures, I'm not really happy with them, and I really am at this point. I've said in previous videos before where I want to stop making customs. That said, I'm trying to whittle down what is the things that I just want to make and get out the way, and just be able to say, okay, I'm done with this hobby. One of them is actually right there. Boom, Miss Marvel. I've been pushing her off for a while. Both of those Miss Marvels need to get remade and repainted and stuff. So that's one that you can look forward to in the next few weeks or months. I decided the biggest thing, what's been holding me up, is I've been, especially for years, is that I really want to make some Persona 5 stuff. There they are, Persona and Fire Emblem figures. Those are like my holy grail. Those are my favorite franchises and things like that. And I've been moving, one of the things that got me enthusiastic about making customs again is that I decided to move up working on them, and I was going to start doing them soon. But now I've been discouraged with my quality. I don't like things that are my most important things. I don't want them to look like booty. I don't want them to look bootleg. I don't want them to look like I painted them. I don't want them to look like there was something, some little side project or something that's not officially licensed. I want them to look professional and amazing because they are important to me. Since I can't do that myself, I decided to, you know what, I'm not going to make any Persona 5 stuff. I'm not going to make any Fire Emblem stuff. If I do, it'll be because I'm okay with it looking butt. Like, if it looks butt, it's better than nothing, sort of thing. Since I have so much Fire Emblem and Persona stuff already near Guilty Gear, I don't need to mess around with making inferior quality toys. So I will continue on for a little bit longer making customs, but not for much longer. So hopefully by the end of the summer I'm done. I'm about to finish this video up. I hate to end on a Debbie Downer moment like this, but I am not done. There will be more things. In fact, I'm about to order right now Ashley for Resident Evil. I'm going to order some Ashley heads right now, and they'll be in within the next week or two. And then that'll be the next thing. I'm basically not going to make anything until those heads come in. And the next thing will be Ashley for Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 4 remakes. It'll be both of them. I'm trying to show you Capcom up there. There they are. Kind of too low to show you any of that stuff. But that'll be the next thing I make. And that'll be like the next major thing. And everything else will be like kind of like remakes and small things and small modifications. And I'll see how I feel after that. Because like I said, I really would like to be done with the hobby by the end of the summer if possible. So again, you can stay subscribed. I do appreciate that. What's going to be on this channel if I don't make any more toys? I haven't 100% fully decided on that, but if you are interested in seeing more of the toys that are back there, more of my collection, just let me know in the comments and I can make videos on that stuff. I have no problem doing that. So let me know. I do have lots of other things. Again, My Hero Academia, Nier Automata, Neon Genesis Evangelion, King of Fighters. I have Full Metal Alchemist, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Spy Family, Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, the X-Men, Avengers, Final Fantasy, Fire Emblem, Persona, DC Comics, and you know, a bunch of stuff over there. So if you're interested in seeing what I have, just let me know. But I will see you next time. There will be another video, I promise. Later.